Good morning, world. So remember last video you met my aunties. These are wonderful ladies who just wanted to talk to me and know where I'd come from. I befriended them and now they'll be my aunties forever. Aren't I a lucky boy? Anyway, so where am I? Well, the Karakoram range, nestled in these very high mountains. Last video I showed you Baltit Fort, and this time I will show you Baltit Fort. So these were two brothers and they made two different forts, probably in competition with each other, which often brothers do.
Baltit Fort. I'm afraid I can't fly my drone, so I'm just trying to take shots from different angles. Hopefully I'll get some from a different elevation vantage point, so you won't be missing out. Looks certainly aesthetically a lot more attractive than Baltit Fort. I was told that Baltit and Baltit were two brothers, and the two forts were made by the brothers governing this land. हिम्मत का मसला है. I love looking at little terraces because you don't fully appreciate, well, I didn't until I had to do it myself, how much effort goes into one little terrace. It's phenomenal. There's a path there that you can take to hike up towards the glacier. It's a 3-hour hike, and as I've said on numerous occasions, if I was wearing a younger man's body like before, I may even have ventured that way, but now only taking pictures is what I can do. I'm a sorry soul for sure.
This is the rear of the fort and it looks absolutely beautiful, made of stone, wood, sand and straw, I guess. They made these forts at such height and with such elevation they could see all around. Just look what's below this fort. It's the entire valley. Now let's go inside the fort. Steps that allow us to enter.
Corridor is a guard's corridor, and it stretches the full length of the fort. I've been told that here they would have a second reinforcement, so if anybody broke the outer doors they could throw stones on them and trap them underneath. Again, the grills are added on post, and this was just to reinforce the fort so that future generations can also enjoy the history and the beauty of this fort. Now we come to some gowns which I will no doubt explain in a short while.
आपको काम ना करे जो दूसरों की आपको पसंद नहीं आती है.
जी जी बिल्कुल.
कोई किरदार कोई एक उनका एक्ट.
जी जी. The first three garments are female garments. I think they're woven woolen garments, and this one was a garment I think offered by the Chinese to the emir of this area, and it's made of pure silk. So quite impressive. And this was actually the guard room, which is now
It's used for presentation of garments.
Yes, of course, it's
Garments, yeah.
garment gallery. This is a gallery where again dignitaries sat down, they ate, they discussed secret agendas relating to the state. The emir of this kingdom, the king if you wish, would bury his treasures underground here. Yes. And when the British came, the last emir who was living here whilst the British came took his wealth and went to China, never to return. Unfortunately, his male offspring died off and only his female offspring stayed, and they never returned. So they're somewhere in China. Maybe they don't even know their heritage. But then the king's brother took reigns, and his family still have some residual, shall we say, power in this region.
This was the kitchen of the fort. and a place where one would cook and eat. The wonderful guide of this place highlighted something very important that he had found through his research, and that was that the skylight which illuminated this kitchen had a design which was Georgian in origin, and therefore, I guess, a Russian design.
I just want to show you again a picture of the kitchen and how the skylight, a small skylight, illuminates the whole room. It has a wonderful ambience, and if the curator disappeared, I'd just hide and stay here for the night, but I can't because he's watching me.
Who is this buffoon standing in front of me, spoiling the shot? He should be behind the camera. Yes, it's me.
This room, whose ceiling seems to attract me a great deal, is actually the king's summer bedroom. I believe the fireplace was a later addition, but this is a wonderful dual aspect room. So you have a window here and a second and third window on this side. So a dual aspect room, and I believe there's a little balcony outside too. There's something about this room, and it's an addition, I think, by the British, and it's this colourful balcony that was created. So there's additions from when it was in the hands of the emirs, the kings, and then this colourful balcony is an addition that the British added. And this is a balcony that overlooked the whole valley. And a little more modernity. It's obviously not modern now, but there's it looks like a telecom and a telephone machine, and a deck chair. I wonder who sat in that deck chair. This is their winter bedroom, and you have to understand a bedroom isn't just for sleeping. It's a room where you slept, you ate, you had your recreation there. You can see a baby cradle. So what they would do is they would cook on this stove, but the stove would stay lit throughout, or as long as they possibly could, and then people would sleep around it and sit around it and eat around it, and that's how they kept warm during the cold, harsh winters. Right, let's move on.
As the sign suggests, this is the interior assembly room, and this is where people would meet to discuss state matters. It's a big room, and it's a grand room. And behind me you can see it's an ornamental room. So I think this would be where powers in the land would meet and discuss any treaty that they wanted to sign or adhere to. Right folks, that's the end of Baltit Fort. It's now a mission to head down to the bottom of the valley to a settlement called Ganesh. And that's where I'm going.
So this is Ganesh Settlement. It's classed as 1,000 years old. I don't believe this is 1,000, but the remnants of the settlement would be at least 1,000 years old. And we'll see some of the old settlement when we enter, but that's the prelogue. And I want to show you this. And these are not 1,000-year-old children, these are young children, but isn't it lovely to see old settlements still being utilized by the youth?
This area has been excavated, and during the time when the glaciers melt, this area is filled with water and used by the kids as a swimming pool. When it subsides and it turns to ice, they use it as an ice skating rink. You can't really see the glaciers from here because the tree is in the way. And then when the ice melts, they use it, as they do right now, as a cricket stadium or ground, and sometimes even football.
This isn't the old gate that lasted 1,000 years, but it is indicative of the entrance that used to exist. And basically this gate would be opened for villagers to go out and work in the fields, and at night then closed with a security guard seated here throughout the night to make sure nobody entered the confines of the village, and somebody's trying to enter, so we shall let them in. This is a memorial, and in this settlement what they used to do is to pay tribute to their elders or somebody extremely loved, they'd build a memorial. And in this case the memorial was a mosque. So this is a mosque, but if you look at the carvings are somewhat different from Islamic carvings. They are Hindu carvings, Buddhist carvings, lots of carvings from the subcontinent, even a swastika. But this is the swastika representing peace. And this is the inside of the mosque. I won't enter because it's still used. It's very dark, but it's a small mosque. And this mosque was built 800 years ago, which is a long time ago. And the carvings, I believe, and this is only an assumption on my part, is that carvings were made to decorate the mosque, and they never really looked at the knowledge or the purpose of these carvings. So this is a lotus flower, this is a swastika. There are other carvings here which I know are indicative of the Hindu religion, but mean different things. But I think these were just put on this mosque to add decoration, decor, make it look beautiful, rather than having any meaningful symbolic definition.
A young lad told me to look at this window, and I am, and I can see why. This is extremely good carving, and the story behind this, as the villagers have told me, is that the carving was something that they learnt when they used to go to Kashmir to trade, which is over the mountains, and that's how they learnt how to carve. The Kashmiri people taught them.
So these doors are really small. I mean, that's less than 3 foot, and the one on the other side is probably around 3 foot. Now that's not to say that people who lived 1,000 years ago were short, but it's more the fact that glaciers used to move down all the way down to this part of the mountain, and so the smaller the door, the less cold air that would come in when you open the door. So they made the doors very small. Also, what they used to do is they would house cattle and people in the same space. So the cattle would be put next to the door so they could absorb some of the cold temperature, and the heat from the cattle would also help with humans being at the end of the room in warming them up. So interesting fact, very interesting indeed. The guide has told me that the people back in those days were very strong, and you can understand, because the only trade they had was agriculture, hard graft, working the fields, working with animals, so they were strong. So and food was basic, organic, and there was no surplus, so we didn't eat for pleasure, we ate for necessity. So if you look at the rocks or the stones that make up the wall, they are big. They never broke the rocks, they just carried big rocks to create the foundations of their buildings. So the bigger the rock, less or stronger the foundation, and that's what they did. They never broke the rocks. Interesting. So this is a courtyard, and it's very interesting to find out facts about this. This is a courtyard where people would gather and offer shows to the villagers, to the community. Around the courtyard are places where people could sit, but the 4 rooms, 1, 2, 3, 4, are the other 4 mosques. So there's 5 mosques in this settlement, because there were 5 tribes, and each tribe had their own mosque. I'm pretty sure they could have gone to anyone's mosque, because a mosque is a place of worship for God, so there was no restrictions, but people put pride in their own creation, so each tribe had their own mosque, and I think that's what it is. So I'm going to show you again the innards of one of the mosques, but it's fascinating that they all worked in unison. They had a place for entertainment, to enjoy music, dance, and basically this courtyard was that place. Who would have thought that on the Silk Route you'd get washed clothes? But originally this was the Silk Route, and obviously that route is no longer. CPAC may have an alternative, but this, I've been told, was the original Silk Route that the Chinese travelled. Now it's just a small alley in a village used by children to play football. Kaise hain bete? Continuing on from the story of the Silk Route, this particular building was a place where people who were traveling on the Silk Route could stop, rest their horses. They would be given food and shelter in this very building. So this effectively was a Silk Route hotel. Theek hai bete, I give you a close-up. These protruding routes were actually places where travelers would tie up their camels and horses. It might now look more modern than it should if it was trying to keep the historical heritage alive, but there are remnants of its history, and to be honest, even that is quite a feat to retain such remnants. So I've been shown this tree, which is supposedly 700 years old. It's old, and I can't see why it might not be 700. But what catches my attention are the watchtowers. So this settlement had 14 watchtowers. There's 4 that are still intact. We can see 3, 1, 2 together, and third on my left. And there's a 4th one behind it, but we can't see it. But there were 14 watchtowers protecting this settlement.
So folks, I've really got carried away with explaining this whole area and the history and the people and how it sits in the passage of time, and not realized how long this video has become. So please do accept my apologies, and I will call it a day. I'll show you some scenes of the local area, and then hopefully tomorrow it's onwards towards the Chinese border. But we have been told that there's been several avalanches, several landslides, and the passage there may not be so easy, that we might have to or might be forced to turn back. But we'll see when we start that journey. For now, thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience. Remember folks, be happy, keep smiling, stay positive. And for those that are on 2 wheels, please ride safely. God bless you all.